welcome to my channel and to today's November video. Today we will be doing a Draw My Life, which is a video I've always wanted to do since the beginning, and I'm really excited to share basically my life story with you guys. Also, I'm really sick, so if my voice sounds a little bit different, I apologize. So let's just get right into it, start at the beginning, start right now. The beginning of my story actually is when my parents got married. My parents got married in 1995, March 11th to be exact. And I'm sure they had a beautiful wedding. I was not there for that. But 1.5 years later came me. On November 14th, 1996 came baby me, Alexa Marie Henderson. Interesting facts, my first name comes from a Billy Joel song called Downeaster Alexa, and my middle name, I am named after my great-grandma, whose name is Marie. So I actually absolutely adore my name. I am a Scorpio, and I was born on a Thursday, and I probably attribute that to why I love Thursdays. Favorite day of the week, not sure why. But growing up, I had lots of family, always surrounding me, always there for me, and my family is one of the closest knit families I've probably ever heard of. Growing up, I was very close with my great-grandma, I was very close with my grandma, I was very close with a lot of my family that normally people aren't very close with, and I consider myself very lucky to have had that. Also, growing up, I always had a lot of personality and a teeny tiny body. I remember my mom always telling me about the situation when I was like 3. We were actually going shopping for shoes, and there were 2 kinds of tennis shoes. There were purple ones and the white ones. My mom wanted me to get the white ones because they would match everything, but I screamed, I begged, I was so dramatic as a kid, but I always wanted the purple shoes, and I always had a will of my own for sure. My mom also told me a lot about how when she was in school still, I would throw down her textbooks and tell her to play with me. I always was a cheeky little kid with a lot of personality. But for 4.5 years, I was an only child, and I wanted nothing other than to have a sibling. I don't remember exactly if I begged my parents for it, but I remember being so happy when I had my little sibling that I had. And at 4.5 years old, my wish was finally granted. My parents told me that I was going to have a little sister or a little brother. My parents decided to wait to find out the gender until the baby was born. So I didn't know at that point whether or not I would have a sister or a brother, but deep inside myself, I begged to have a little sister. I was convinced I was going to have a little sister and we were going to be best friends, and that was not the case at all, because come May 2001, I was blessed with a little brother, and it turns out it probably was for the best that I didn't have a little sister. But yeah, I really wanted it back then, and was a little disappointed when I found out I was getting a little brother, but it turned out to be okay. And as soon as I saw him, I fell in love. It was my little brother, and I absolutely loved him. His name was Jack, and I was okay with having a little brother because I was just in love with him. Growing up, me and Jack were best friends. We absolutely loved playing together. He played princesses with me. Okay, I'm not going to embarrass you like that, Jack. But yeah, we were best friends. We played together a lot because we were all each other had. And little did we know that we would actually be getting another sibling, but that comes later. Sports were always a huge passion for me, but definitely not at first. I was very lucky that my parents actually put me in pretty much every sport you could possibly imagine. But one of my favorite memories as a kid, it was around when I was 5 years old. We were at a soccer game and everyone was playing, and my mom came up to me and she was like, "So, Alexa, the score is tied. It's 2-2. You got to go out there and play hard." And I go out there and sit in the grass and play with the dandelions, just in my own little world. And my dad said the infamous line, "Well, she'll definitely never be an athlete," which turned out to be the opposite of true. But it's kind of funny looking back that I was so uncompetitive, however you say that. But yeah, I entered pretty much every sport. I was a swimmer, I played basketball, I played soccer, I did softball, I did volleyball, lots of different sports over the years, and I ended up being extremely competitive and falling in love with sports. As a kid of that age, I also was extremely in love with animals. I was convinced for a lot of my life that I was going to be a veterinarian, and I absolutely loved my dogs. These are three of my dogs. This is Purdue, Indy, and Teddy, and I also love cats. I love my cat. I think my love of animals will carry with me probably my whole life. As a kid, I also was extremely obsessed with horses. I was convinced that my mom was going to buy me a horse and we were going to tie it to the mailbox. I'm not sure how long that dream of mine actually stayed intact, but for real, I thought that we were going to get a horse and tie it to our front mailbox. And I was very lucky because of my love of horses. I rode a lot when I was a little kid. And sadly, I don't do that as much anymore, but I would love to get back into riding someday just because it's very enjoyable for me and it brings me back to my childhood days. Kindergarten through second grade were some of the best years of my life. My teacher was amazing, I had amazing friends, but then came third grade. Third grade, we moved to a new school, and sadly, I had a new teacher, and a lot of my really close friends became separated from me. It was a very sad time in my life. A lot of my friends were actually placed in different classrooms, so I felt very separated from them. And at recess, I remember a specific time where they wanted to still be friends with me, but I felt like because we were separated and it was just like they were faking it or something. I don't know. I was a little kid back then, and looking back on it, it's a lot different looking back on it because I know that we could have remained friends and it would have been fine. But in that moment, I felt so separated and saddened by this that I felt like they no longer wanted to be friends with me, even though that was far from the case. Grades 3 through 5, I actually struggled with friends. I felt like I didn't really have any. And this actually probably resulted in my love of books because I remember turning to books a lot to fill that void for me that I didn't have a ton of friends. Nowadays, I still love books, and I really attribute that to like 4th and 5th grade when I really started to fall in love with them. And even though I struggled in school, I was really lucky because my family is the best family ever, and I had them to support me. When I was about 9.5 years old, I was blessed with my second little brother. Once again, I hoped for a little sister, and this time we actually found out the gender ahead of time. So we went to the ultrasound and we found out, we looked at the screen, and the lady said it's a 99.9% chance that it's going to be a boy. And I cried, I was upset again, and I told my mom at least there's a 0.1 chance that it could be a girl. At least there's that. And I remember really rationalizing this sadness I had about not having a little sister because I just remember, I don't know if it's my mom that said this to me or it was just a thought in my head, but it was like, I love my little brother Jack, so I'm going to love this little brother too, even though it's not a little sister. Then in February of 2006, we were blessed with our little brother, Ben. I remember my parents were torn between naming him Ben and Benjamin, and I absolutely begged them to name him Benjamin because I love that name. And so yeah, we became the Three Musketeers. We were each other's best friends. The amount of pictures between the three of us growing up is pretty much ridiculous, but our family was finally complete with the three of us. It was perfect. Now, going into middle school. Middle school is really when I started really taking sports seriously, and mostly volleyball and basketball. And I did still play soccer at the time, and I did still do some other activities, but mostly I really loved basketball and volleyball. Those were my two main sports, and I absolutely loved them. By sixth grade, I had realized that I needed to expand my circle of friends, and I actually made a few friends and began to be a lot more social. I still read books a lot, and I still actually wrote books. I wrote entire notebooks filled with stories, and at that point in my life, I really thought I was going to be a writer someday. By seventh grade, I actually made a ton of friends, and this actually resulted in me saying goodbye to some of my older friends, which is unfortunate, and I wish I hadn't had to do that, but at the same time, making friends with all these newer people was some of the best things that I ever did, even though I was really sad to leave my old friends. On the inside, in middle school, that's when I started to really see that definitely seasonal depression sinking in. But I also learned a lot of different ways that I could combat that, and one of the ways was through music and writing, and those were some of the best things in my life back then. I actually picked up the guitar around 7th grade, maybe 8th grade, I'm not really sure what age. But yeah, that's when I got my first guitar and started playing. I absolutely loved it. My freshman year of high school, I actually made varsity in volleyball and basketball. This is an old article from back then. And because I made varsity for both my sports, I actually made a lot of older friends, and this was a blessing to me. I absolutely loved the friends that I made back then, and I wish I was closer with them now, but sometimes people just grow apart, you know? But freshman through senior year of high school, I really had my big goal in mind, which was collegiate volleyball, my dream since I was pretty much a tiny little kid. So this actually was a good thing and a bad thing. I was so committed to it that I was driving out to practices 3 times a week, and then on weekends I had tournaments, and I was actually really sad because a lot of times my friends would have like little parties at their house, and I wouldn't get invited because they knew I wouldn't come because I was too busy. But looking back on it, I probably wouldn't change a thing because I completed one of my lifelong goals, so it turned out okay. At school, I was a very happy person. I tried to get through the day with a smile on my face for the most part, but at home, I was very sad, down, and depressed. I really struggled through high school with especially seasonal depression and just being really down on myself a lot. My junior and senior year, I finally got that scholarship that I had dreamed of my whole life, and these are a couple of newspaper articles from that time in my life. And I decided I was going to CBU in Memphis, Tennessee. In 2015, I graduated high school, and this is the same year that I actually went off to college and started my life in Tennessee. So I actually made the move in 2015 from Wisconsin to Tennessee, which is about a 10-hour drive. And I was so homesick my freshman year. I tried not to let it get to me. I tried not to tell people I was homesick, but I was so homesick. I was really homesick and sad back then, but I ended up being okay because I made some really great friends, and I absolutely loved playing college volleyball, even though it was the absolute hardest, most emotionally challenging thing I've ever done, and I survived, so that's all that matters. But sophomore year, Christmas break, I got into a really, really bad car accident. I don't actually think I still have a picture of my car because that was on one of my old phones, and but it looked pretty bad. My car was driving down the side of an interstate going about somewhere between 70 and 80, and a truck pulled over on the side of the road, pulled directly into my lane. It was the scariest moment of my life, and I thought I was going to die. In the months following, I had severe depression. I had really bad anxiety about being in cars, in spaces that I couldn't escape from, and I had really bad panic attacks. Not to mention the actual physical injuries that I had, which were really severe whiplash, a really bad concussion. My back was really messed up. I had a hard time moving, so I just laid in bed for a literal month. It was terrible, and it was the lowest point of my life. But it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because that's when I bought my first Bible. And that's when I started reaching for something bigger than me, because I didn't know why I survived, but I knew it was for a purpose. For some reason, when I read the Bible, it actually made me feel a little bit better. And this was a blessing in disguise, especially my junior year of college. I was very, very down and sad, and I would turn to that Bible, and it made me feel better. My senior year of college, I finished up volleyball. I actually met my boyfriend, Sean, and he now lives in Wisconsin, so that's kind of crazy. In January 2019, I actually made my YouTube channel, and that's one of the best things I've ever done. And this actually resulted in me finding out who my true friends were, who actually supported everything I did, and who didn't. And I got a lot of backlash for that, actually. It was very upsetting for me to see people that I loved basically telling me that I sucked. But for once, I actually didn't care, because it actually made me happy and brought joy to my life. So here I am now, 11 months later, and still making YouTube videos, still happy about it. In May 2019, I got my degree. I graduated with a degree in natural science, and I was so proud of myself, because once again, this was another lifelong goal for me, to graduate from college. And yeah, it was a very happy time for me. As soon as I got back, we found out that my great-grandma, who I was really close with, was actually very sick. We found out she had acute myeloid leukemia, and we were told she had 3 to 4 months, and sadly, she didn't have that much. Because 1 week later, we lost her, and that was the saddest of my life. Got the phone call right before my nanny passed that I had my big girl job. So what's my life now? I am doing November, which I always dreamed of. Sean and I have dated for over a year, and I am 23 years old. He's actually moving here, and I'm getting my first apartment. So life is really good right now. But yeah, that's my draw my life. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you tomorrow for our next day of November. Bye!